In the expansive universe of Dune created by Frank Herbert, we see a great number of exceptional characters and factions. One of the most interesting factions or houses of the Imperium is House Harkonnen. Consider them the pinnacle of bad guys in the Duneverse because they truly are the most sinful and disruptive house out there. They are one of the major political players in the story and serve as the main antagonists throughout much of the timelines of the Duneverse. The Harkonnens are known for their cruelty and brutality and are characterized as power-hungry, sadistic, and wicked. They are bitter enemies of House Atreides, another noble family, and are determined to destroy them no matter the cost. The patriarch of House Harkonnen is Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, whose appearance is so grotesque that he can make anyone shudder. He also indulges in all manner of perversions and mind games. He is a cunning and ruthless mastermind, always scheming to gain power and eliminate his enemies. With a leader who knows no bound to his defiance and an army of supporters loyal to their cause, House Harkonnen proves time and time again why they should not be trusted and how powerful they are. In this video, we will explore everything you need to know about the Harkonnens, from their origins to their inevitable downfall. So, without further ado, let us get on with the video. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. A brief history of family Harkonnen. Before House Harkonnen became a major political and economic power in the Duneverse, they had their origins rooted on ancient Earth. This is when humanity took to the stars and chose to settle in the unforgiving yet always giving planetary life waiting to be found in the galaxy. The name Harkonnen is believed to be originating from Northern Europe on ancient Earth. This region was called Suomi, better known to us as Finland. The name is derived from the Finnish word harka, which means ox. The Harkonnens eventually settled on the planet called Gedi Prime, which was the third planet orbiting the star Ophiuchi b. Their homeworld was as bad as they were, as it became inhospitable over the generations, while the Harkonnens extracted every last bit of resource out of it. Originally, the planet had controlled temperature ranges and showed a lot of potential to be great. But with the uprising of the industrialization caused by the Harkonnens, the planet suffered greatly. So much so that the level and rate of photosynthesis on the entire planet dropped completely as the industries took over. The only original forest that was preserved by the Harkonnens was for the logging and export of Pilingidum trees, so nothing to sightsee there either. The planet was full of factories, well-planned out cities, and arenas to marvel at. The arenas were mainly used for the entertainment of the people, and their choice was quite barbaric. The only events they held were gladiator matches reminiscent of ancient Rome. With the passage of time, the torch of the Baron was passed on within the Harkonnen family. Each Baron was as vicious as they come, but one definitely takes the cake, literally. Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, the morbidly obese leader of House Harkonnen, served as the penultimate ruler of the house. He was the mastermind behind several acts of destruction, and he frequently demonstrated how there is no limit to the extent of his voracious desire for power. He controls and manipulates people around him, even his own family, using his riches and power. He is renowned for his ruthlessness and cunning behavior, and will do anything to accomplish his objectives. Before House Harkonnen was a great power of the Landsraad. They acted as a house minor, which meant they did not hold much political or economic power over the regions. The rise of the family came from the whale fur market, which was manipulated and exploited by them for profit. This was done by the father of Vladimir Harkonnen, Baron Dmitri Harkonnen. As we mentioned earlier, after settlement, the Harkonnens exploited their planet to the extreme and maximized production and creation through industrialization. They cared little for the environment and did not work economically or ethically regardless of how other people saw them. They simply aimed to gain the highest amount of money in the quickest way possible. Even within the house, the royalty displayed their brash attitudes and ruthless ways to any and everyone, while the people of their court used deceitful ways to rise up in the ranks. Sounds like a great workplace when you do not know when someone is planning to assassinate you, right? Around the year 10,130 AG, House Harkonnen was given the blessing of the Siradar fief of Arrakis, which meant they held territorial obligation over the planet, bestowed upon them by the Padishah Emperor. This was exactly what the Harkonnens wanted, as Arrakis was the source of the spice melange, the most sought-after and expensive drug in the Duneverse. The drug is used in a plethora of different ways, from enhancing one's powers stars to making space travel possible. With the authority to extract and supply this spice to the galaxy, House Harkonnen became the oppressor of the natal people of Arrakis, the Fremen. Over time, the Harkonnens created megastructures in Arrakis to exploit them of the spice melange and make life as difficult as they could for the Fremen. This proved to be wonderful for them and allowed them to amass a fortune through the mining, processing, and selling of this spice. What do Harkonnens want, and how do they trigger the central conflict in the movie adaptation? With the Sirdar fief of Arrakis won and the hegemony over spice melange, the Harkonnens were able to gain substantial control over the Imperium. But still, House Atreides' power was ever-growing under the leadership of Duke Leto Atreides and his family. We see Baron Vladimir Harkonnen mention in the movie that the Padishah Emperor is a jealous man and he wanted to halt the growth of House Atreides before they gained more power over the other houses. This leads us to the major conflict that arises in the movie. Through some political talk in the back, House Harkonnen and the Emperor decided it would be a more powerful move to allow the Atreides to control the production of spice melange on the planet Arrakis. But to ensure the House Atreides fails eventually, the Harkonnens left them no room to work with, and they were able to bypass all checks through the commands of the Emperor. The Padishah Emperor Shaddam Carino IV laid a nefarious trap for House Atreides through the power of others, while Duke Leto had no assumption of the idea, but was still prepared for the worst. The Emperor's alliance with the Harkonnens proved to be fatal for the Atreides, as they were backed into a corner. Even though the Harkonnens attempted to industrialize the planet Arrakis for the spice melange by exploiting both the lands and its people, Arrakis's weather conditions and extreme environment did not allow them to assume full control over the planet. As we see in the movie, the Harkonnens are only able to count the existence of 50,000 Fremens, when in reality their population was in the millions. Regardless, House Harkonnen was satisfied with everything they had, and they exploited their powers to the maximum. The abundance of spice melange waiting to be extracted and sold was exactly what the Harkonnens desired. With the control of Arrakis bestowed upon House Atreides, the plan of the Emperor and Baron Harkonnen started taking shape. They wished to cripple the Empire through deceit. They were successful in doing so, as in the second half of the movie, we see the downfall of House Atreides firsthand. Initially, the betrayal of Dr. Yueh is the reason for the breach and the subsequent battle of the unprepared Atreides armies, and the ever-so-strong armies of the Harkonnens backed by the Sardaukars is the ultimate decider in the fate of House Atreides. Dr. Yueh was a trusted member of the Atreides kingdom, but he betrayed them at the behest of Baron Harkonnen, who had kept his wife in captivity and given him his word that if he worked for him, he would get his wife back. But even the betrayer got betrayed, as when Yueh reached out to Vladimir, he simply slit his throat and killed him. During the whole battle taking place, the Harkonnens had only one rule to follow on behalf of the Bene Gesserit, which was to let Lady Jessica and her son Paul Atreides live. The two were stranded in the dangerous deserts of Arrakis and had to fight for their survival. Exploring some of the important members of House Harkonnen. Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. A kingdom is only powerful when its leader is a powerful man who can work to ensure that his empire grows at every possible turn. This knows no boundaries when it comes to Vladimir Harkonnen. One of the most sadistic and chilling presences in the stories of Dune, Vladimir is a force to be reckoned with. Vladimir was born into the wealthy and influential Harkonnen family, while his father Dmitri was the Baron. Vladimir showed signs of great leadership ever since he was a child. He even showed great affinity for ruling and was a natural at it, while his focus was alarmingly high on attaining more power and influence since his teens. He is said to have enjoyed torturing animals and his servants, and to have taken pleasure in inflicting pain on others. His sadism was on another level, as he never knew how to control his urges. Sometimes he would act giddy and excited when he saw others suffer for his entertainment. Above all else, Vladimir strongly believed he held supremacy over all others and wished for everyone to serve him with their life. Vladimir Harkonnen is regarded as having an ugly and unattractive visage due to his staggering obesity. The Baron is many times larger than the average human due to his bloated, distended physique and layers of fat. His physical attributes are so inflated that they have almost mythological qualities, with tales of his size, weight, and chubby body circulating the galaxy. The Baron is a large man, and his appearance is distinguished by several other peculiar characteristics as well. His skin can be described as being waxy, yellow, and having a feel similar to cooked leather, along with having a jowled chin, a bulbous nose, and tiny, close-set eyes. His face is also deformed and twisted. His huge lips are permanently twisted in a scowl, and his mouth is wide and droopy. The Baron uses anti-gravity belt-mounted suspensors that are integrated into his chair and attire to sustain the enormous heft. Despite his enormous size, he can move about easily thanks to these gadgets. The Baron is also shielded from harm and given support by an air cushion that has formed around him thanks to the suspensors. These also enable him to float in the center of nothing but air, allowing him to maneuver around and strike an intimidating figure. Because of his extreme weight, Vladimir is completely unable to move, much less walk without assistance. Despite all of the downfalls that his health brings, Vladimir enjoys a lavish lifestyle and spends money for his entertainment regarding food, servants, sexual and otherwise, and the suffering of others. Baron's gluttony and life of luxury are contributing factors to his ever-growing size and unhealthiness. He frequently injects himself with various drugs and antidotes, which proves to be essential for his survival in Dune 2021, when Duke Leto uses a poisoned tooth to try and assassinate him. In the movie, Vladimir seems to be absurdly tall, reaching around 9 to 10 feet due to his suspensors, and instead of being attached to his chair, this technology is implanted into his spine, allowing him to move around ever more freely. Combined with his stature and his iconic long robe, Vladimir looks as menacing as an antagonist should who holds the galaxy in his hand. Beast Rabon. Beast Rabon, also known as Glossu Rabon, is the brutal and sadistic nephew of Baron Vladimir Harkonnen and also serves as one of the main antagonists in the story. He is assigned to govern the desert planet of Arrakis, which is the only source of the valuable spice melange. He uses brutal tactics to maintain control over the planet's population and is notorious for his cruelty towards the Fremen. He is shown to be quite brash and impulsive and lacks the capability of foresight, meaning his ability to understand everything seems quite non-existent. Rabon is depicted as physically imposing, with a hulking frame and a menacing presence. He is also known for his violent temper and his propensity for using force to solve problems. Despite his brutality, Rabon is also shown to be attempting to be cunning and manipulative, but all he could fathom in those qualities is using fear and intimidation to maintain his power. He is more of a dim-witted brute than a leader that others can look up to, and he loses his cool quite often. Even in the movie, we see a scene where Rabon loses his composure while panicking about what the Baron had planned for Arrakis. Without a doubt, the leadership qualities of Vladimir could have allowed him to work from the ground up when creating an empire. But for someone like Rabon, the only way for him to reach such a position of power is through the hierarchical transfer of power. For what it is worth, Rabon's personality is shown to be defined by his own loyalty to the Harkonnen family, particularly the Baron. He is willing to carry out any order, no matter how violent or inhumane, in service of the family's interests. He embodies the worst qualities of all of the Harkonnens, and as an end result is one of the most disappointing personalities to lead a successful empire at the level of the Harkonnens. Piter DeVries. Piter DeVries was the leading mentat of House Harkonnen and served as a close personnel of the Baron. DeVries was a wicked sadist who rivaled the Baron in ambition and impatience. A mentat is a type of human trained to perform mental calculations and analysis at a superhuman level. DeVries was great at what he did and rarely made any misjudgments or miscalculations. He was the reason why Vladimir Harkonnen was able to carry out his mastermind plans as a means to make others see their inferiority. Piter DeVries is initially employed by the Harkonnen family and serves as their mentat and chief interrogator. He is portrayed as a cold and calculating individual who takes pleasure in inflicting pain and suffering on others. He is particularly skilled at psychological manipulation and is able to extract information from his victims through a combination of threats and mind games. Despite his cruel and sadistic tendencies, Piter is also shown to be extremely intelligent and perceptive with a deep understanding of the human psyche. He is able to analyze situations and predict outcomes with a high degree of accuracy, making him a valuable asset to the Harkonnens. Serving as a part of the main antagonist's entourage of Dune, DeVries uses his intelligence and manipulation skills to further the Harkonnens' goals and undermine their enemies. However, his own twisted personality and lack of empathy ultimately lead to his downfall, as he is unable to anticipate the actions of his enemies and falls victim to his own machinations. He is a complex character that had much to give to the audience due to his intellect and unbound cruelty. House Harkonnen lore from the prequel novel. Dune, House Harkonnen is a prequel novel to Frank Herbert's Dune series, written by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson. It was published in 2000 and is the second book in the Prelude to Dune trilogy. The novel follows the Harkonnen family as one of the key antagonists in the original Dune series and provides a detailed backstory for several of its major characters. The story is set roughly 35 years before the events of Dune and takes place on the planet Giedi Prime, the Harkonnens' home world. The main characters in House Harkonnen include Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, the cruel and sadistic leader of the family, his nephews Glasu Rabon and Fade Ralpha, who would go on to become major villains in the original Dune series, and the young Leto Atreides, who would later become the protagonist of the first Dune novel. The novel explores the political maneuvering and power struggles within the Harkonnen family, as well as their attempts to maintain control over their planet and their ruthless exploitation of its people. It also introduces several new characters and factions, including the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood and the Tleilax Zu, a secretive and enigmatic group of genetic engineers. In the story, we follow the health of Baron Vladimir Harkonnen on Giedi Prime. This is where we get to know why Vladimir was as morbidly obese as he was. His health issues came at the hands of Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohiam, simply known as Mohiam. She sought revenge on Vladimir for his actions of raping her and forcing her to conceive offspring for him. So she cursed him and gave him a degenerative disease. With this genetic disposition to obesity, Vladimir underwent a plethora of medical treatments to no avail, and the only way to counteract this disease was through gluttony. Vladimir was not aware of the curse that Mohiam had inflicted upon him, and he changed doctor after doctor who was failing to diagnose him properly and figure out a solution for his strange disease. After killing a handful of great doctors who were unsuccessful in aiding his health, Vladimir hired Dr. Yua for an extremely high price. Through his genius and great understanding of the human body, Dr. Yua is able to understand the severity of Vladimir's condition. He is also able to decipher that his ailments are caused due to Mohiam of the Bene Gesserit. Seeing this treachery, Vladimir aimed to take revenge against the Bene Gesserit, but eventually, he embarrassingly fails to do so. He has to accept his condition and makes all the necessary adjustments needed to prolong his life and make everyday actions accessible. During this time, Vladimir's brother, Abelard, finds an illegal containment of the spice melange. He realizes that under Vladimir's rule, House Harkonnen has been illegally extracting and stockpiling the drug, which explained the unfathomable riches their kingdom had. Abelard, who is the polar opposite of what a Harkonnen is renowned to be, decided that he would use this illegal stockpile to help his people rather than report this to the Padishah Emperor and be the reason for the Harkonnens' downfall. In his benevolence, Abelard shared their riches and ensured that the resources are reaching the right people. But Abelard's actions do not remain covert for long, and Glasu Rabon is able to find out what his father has been doing behind the Baron's back. In an impulse, Rabon strangles his father to death, believing that his faith lies with the Harkonnen family and that traitors shall be killed. This act of violence against his own father is the reason why Rabon was later known as Beast Rabon. During this time, Vladimir kidnaps Abelard's other son, Fade Ralpha, and attempts to raise him as his own. The novel delves deeper into the complex and intricate world of Dune, providing readers with a richly detailed and immersive experience. It offers a fascinating exploration of the Harkonnen family and its various machinations, as well as the wider political and social forces that shape the world of Dune. Overall, it is a must-read for fans of the original Dune series, offering a deeper understanding of its world and characters. The fated fall of House Harkonnen. The downfall of House Harkonnen is a significant plot point in the novel. House Harkonnen is initially in control of Arrakis, but they are overthrown by their arch-enemies, House Atreides, with the help of the natal Fremen population. The Harkonnens had ruled Arrakis for decades, using brutal tactics and exploiting the Fremen, who were forced to work in the dangerous spice mines. The fall of House Harkonnen is the result of a long-standing feud between the Harkonnens and Atreides, which stems from a previous conflict over control of another planet. Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, the leader of House Harkonnen, is a ruthless and sadistic man who seeks revenge of the Atreides. He conspires with the Emperor to lure the Atreides to Arrakis under the guise of a peaceful transfer of power. only to betray and attack them with overwhelming force. This is where things get complicated for the Baron. His wishes had no bound and his dreams had no limits. He not only wanted to overthrow the power of House Atreides, but also wanted to usurp the Padishah Emperor of House Carino. While he plotted against House Atreides with the Emperor, he was also plotting against House Carino in hopes of eliminating all the major players that stand between him and the ultimate rule over the galaxy. The key aspect that led to the downfall of House Harkonnen came from the survival of Lady Jessica and her son Paul Atreides, while House Atreides fell with the demise of Duke Leto Atreides. Baron Vladimir Harkonnen believed Paul and Jessica to be dead as per his reports. Rabon and other members of the army believed that the two would succumb to the dangers of the desert of Arrakis and die by the fangs of the sandworms. But through Paul's knowledge and insightful understanding of the Fremen and Lady Jessica's Bene Gesserit training, the two are able to survive and join the Fremen. They quickly gain their trust and respect, and all of this eventually leads to the uprising of the House Atreides once again, with Duke Paul Atreides commanding the powers of the Fremen and leading the planet of Arrakis alongside his people. Meanwhile, Vladimir was concerned with dealing with the Carino Empire and was focusing on how to take them out without much trouble, but that was never going to be an easy task. In hopes of forming the Harkonnen Empire, Vladimir and his kingdom focused on the wrong individuals and allowed the people who they had wronged to work against them. Vladimir's plan to overpower House Carino was either through force or marriage or both, but none of it came to fruition, as by the time the Harkonnens attempted to make their first move against House Carino, Paul Atreides had risen above and beyond on Arrakis in terms of both individual and collective strength as a kingdom. In the year 10,193 AG, Baron Vladimir Harkonnen was killed by Paul's younger sister and the daughter of Jessica, Alia Atreides, who was born with latent powers. She was able to overwhelm the forces of the Harkonnens in unison with Paul, who previously gained psionic powers and the ability to manipulate the abundant sandworms on Arrakis. Through the combined strength of these individuals and the astounding powers of the Fremen on the battlefield, House Harkonnen's rule came to an end, and Paul was able to halt their rise to be the only galactic power. With Vladimir's death, the title of Baron Harkonnen was passed on to Feyd-Rautha, who Vladimir considered more of a leader than Rabon anyway. House Harkonnen did not stay under Feyd's rule for long, as Paul Atreides was able to best him and kill him in an act of conly. Conly was the enactment of a formal feud of vendetta in a manner that complied with the Great Convention. This rule acts as a limiter of sorts on the number of resources or powers a house will use in its war for attrition. For example, the Great Convention was the reason why the houses were not allowed to use nuclear power for offensive measures. Otherwise, it would have meant a sentence of exile. With the fall of Feyd-Rautha, the downfall of House Harkonnen was imminent. Their numbers had deteriorated, their leaders were killed, and their morale was down. Their riches had also been exploited and left no value. What little remained of House Harkonnen in power and resources also started diminishing at a rapid rate and eventually disappear. Even the control of their industrial marvel, Giedi Prime, was given to the people of Caladan. Gurney Halleck was given the role of supervising whatever went on that planet, as he was familiar with the ruthlessness that he was exposed to on that planet. Gurney was previously a slave on Giedi Prime, and he was tortured in the worst ways possible, as he was beaten and drugged, and he was forced to see his wife get tortured and raped in front of him. As an arc of redemption for himself, Gurney made it his mission to resuscitate the planet back to its former glory before the industrialization. Gurney dismantled the abundant machines on the planet, changed the names of the cities, and replanted the forests to bring back the greenery. During Muad'Dib's jihad, House Harkonnen basically vanished off the face of the universe. However, the Harkonnen lineage persisted through Bene Gesserit breeding programs for more than 1,500 years after that. Even the Atreides bloodline was interbred with the Harkonnen bloodline, since Paul Atreides was Vladimir Harkonnen's grandson due to Lady Jessica not knowing her origins. But still, apart from their blood, no other remnants of the Harkonnens remained, and their brutality and sadism finally took a turn for the worst. Conclusion. House Harkonnen is a complex and compelling element of the Duneverse, serving as the primary antagonist of the entire story. The house is known for its cruelty and unscrupulousness, and its actions ultimately lead to its downfall. However, House Harkonnen is also an example of the consequences of unchecked power and the dangers of revenge and the thirst for unending regimes, as its leaders are consumed by their desire for vengeance against their enemies and machinations for a future of tyrannical rule. Despite their brutality, House Harkonnen remains an integral part of the Duneverse, representing the darker side of human nature and the harsh realities of power politics in a world driven by scarce resources. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.